So today I want to talk to you guys about the characters that I often hear are unplayable, terrible, super low win rate heroes that most people agree are kind of troll picks or just picks you shouldn't really go for. But talk about the people that have actually done really well with them and heroes that one tricks have carried as, even though in most people's eyes they really aren't way too great. Now, before we get started, I do want to put a disclaimer out there. These characters are hard to get into, have a very high skill floor, a very high skill ceiling. They put a ton of time to start carrying as these characters, and they really aren't characters that you should just pick up and play. You should have at least 20 to 30 hours of these guys, at minimum, to start picking them up in ranked. But with that out of the way, let's just get started about the characters that I personally feel like really can do well if you have super skill with them, and if, in general, they're just in the right hands. So Hanzo is the immediate troll pick character that I think a lot of people think about. You know, there's Bastion, there's the old Junkrat, there's a few other characters, but when most people decide to troll and to not try, they switch on to Hanzo, and I feel like that's really given him a bad reputation. Along with that, Hanzo has had the lowest win rate for almost all the time, or at least, you know, in the top 3 lowest win rates. He's obviously not that great of a character for the majority of the players, and that's even Diamond and above, or I guess Platinum and above. But with that in mind, I do feel like there is quite a bit that Hanzo can still do, and especially if you get amazing at him, it's obvious that he can work. I feel like Raksu is the best example of this. For a long time, people thought Hanzo just, didn't work. You couldn't play him on high elo, it just wasn't an option. But then Raksu showed up out of nowhere, and just kind of blew everybody out of the water. I think he got all the way to top 10, maybe even further from there, I don't remember exactly, but definitely did way more than just about anybody else could. He abused what Hanzo can do in solo queue matchmaking, that being getting picks on people out of position, one-shotting those tanks that are next to their healers, and overall just kind of learning how to abuse Hanzo in the solo queue system. I've heard him say before that, he maybe wouldn't even want to play in esports because Hanzo's a little bit too hard to play there and he just doesn't really fit most team comps. But in solo queue, he is a viable choice and he's someone that if you put time into, you can learn. A thing about Hanzo I do want to talk about that I feel like is very important to learn from Raksu is consistency. Normally with Hanzo, you think he's not a very consistent character. It's hard to hit all those shots, it's hard to hit those scatters and everything like that. But as we've seen, if you put in enough time and enough practice, you can become consistent with this character. You can consistently get air shots, get body shots, get headshots, get whatever you need. You can kind of know if you should position close or far, how you want to play. It can all come over time with Hanzo. And while it does take, I think, way more time than just about any other hero to learn and to even get into the groove of, but I mean, it worked for Raksu. He eventually got way up there with Hanzo, so I guess there's your evidence. Now, Widowmaker is kind of weird because I don't think most people think of her as like a troll pick or an unplayable pick, and I think most people for really ever have kind of thought, she's a pretty good pick if you become a god as her, and otherwise, probably just don't play her. And that's kind of how it is. As Widowmaker, she has, again, a pretty low win rate. I think it's in the top 5 lowest for quite a long time. And while she can do good, while she can get a lot of consistent far range picks and DPS out, there is a super high gap of entry that you have to get into with this character. The average Widowmaker headshot is around like 30% if you're up in Grandmaster or anything like that. That's insane. And body shot is, of course, a lot higher. As Widowmaker, I feel like it's just hard because it's not just getting, good headshots, good damage out there. It's also figuring out how to play versus certain team comps that's really hard to do as this character. If you don't have high ground and you're fighting against a very tanky comp or a comp with a lot of shields or something like that, it's kind of hard to figure out what to do as Widow. And if you get dived, that's kind of hard to deal with as well. There's a lot of different situations that you just kind of have to figure out with a ton of time on this character, and a lot of situations that you just have to kind of hope that you can go 1 for 1 for and maybe do better in the next life. A person that we've seen for a long time though do great as this character is Kefri. He's been able to play Widowmaker ever since the beginning, been up in Grandmaster, I think top 500 for quite a while. He might even still be there, and he's consistently shown that if you are a really good player on this character, there's a chance to carry with her quite hard. And she's actually one of the characters that I've seen a lot of people carry through ranked with really fast, especially if you're trying to just go from like platinum to masters. If you're amazing at Widowmaker, you can definitely do that. Again, I think the hardest thing that we've especially seen with Kefri is that depending on the meta, it can be kind of hard. Triple tank metas, Widowmaker is almost unplayable unless you can just get a billion picks on the supports. But in general, she's a pick that has worked in the past and probably will work for quite a while. But in general, again, it's just very hard to play with. And finally, there's Doomfist, and He has the lowest win rate since any character came out. Lower than Ana, lower than Sombra, lower than all the different characters that had super bad win rates. Yeah, he's honestly quite terrible in most people's hands. He almost never wins games. He has like a 42% win rate, and I think most people have just kind of thought of him as a troll pick now. It's hard to get consistent far range damage with him. It's hard to counter, certain comps. It's hard for you to kill tanks. It's hard for you to pick off the supports. It's hard for a lot of people to do a lot of stuff with this character. But one person that we've been seeing actually succeeding a lot with this character, that is Doomfist, is Chipsaw. And I've actually been watching a lot of his live stream. I've been watching his gameplay and everything like that. And there's something just a little bit different about him. When you watch the average Doomfist player, they go for a lot of kills with that alternate fire, that rocket punch. That's their main way of getting damage and getting kills. But when you watch Chipsaw play, he doesn't really do that. For the most part, he uses his rocket punch to get in or get out. And while he does take those free rocket punch kills, he mainly tries to get kills from being on the high ground, jumping down on the enemy with his E, shooting them, shift, shoot, and trying to get out again with his rocket punch. And he does that again and again and again, plays around corners, uses high ground, jumps about all over the place. And overall, it's a very unique playstyle that I feel like a lot of people don't really go for, and I think that's why a lot of people kind of fail with Doomfist. They just go for that one and done, pick Doomfist with your alternate fire, and often that doesn't really work for you. I think the problem with Doomfist right now is that people just simply don't really know how to play his playstyle, and everybody's kind of given up on it. Right now, for the majority of players, I just see the pick Doomfist, and it doesn't really work out way too well all the time. I feel like one of the main problems about Doomfist is that he has a huge barrier to entry. You have to be very good at him to do even okay. And that's not something you have to deal with almost any other character in this game. He's not like Reaper where you can just keep going in the front line with your tanks, and he's not really like Soldier where you can just spam from the back line. You do have to be very good at this character to even do half okay. And that's where I think his win rate comes from, and that's as well where I think his play rate comes from. Most people just get kind of bored from playing him, and I guess one final thing that can kind of hurt him is the fact that Pharah, Junkrat, and all these other characters like McCree also do hurt him quite a bit. Even with that all in mind though, Chipsaw's really shown that you can do well as this character, and if you put in enough time and effort, there are some wins that can come your way. In the end though, I guess we can just all come to understand that any character can be playable, but some are just a lot easier to play than others, some take a lot less time to play than others, and some generally are just gonna give you more wins than others. Of course, the way the system is set up, sometimes with characters, if you have like a 40% win rate, you can still climb because you have better stats than the average player. And that could be what's, kind of going on with Doomfist for a lot of players, and maybe could work for you. But, just kind of how the system works, and, gotta abuse the system whenever you possibly can, I guess. Because Blizzard's never gonna patch it out. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below the characters that you personally feel like most people think are really unplayable or just not good picks that you've actually done really well as, or certain other pro streamers that you've seen that have done really well as, with characters that, again, most people probably wouldn't think are way too great right now. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.